All right, so we have the 4 eras. When we look at the history of life, we're going to kind of divide them up into time periods. We're going to talk about the Precambrian, the Paleozoic, Mesozoic, and Cenozoic. And then within each era are what we call periods. So we're going to divide those large units of time up into smaller units of time. So we're talking about the Precambrian period. That's 4,600 million years to 600 million years ago. 80% of Earth's lifetime was spent in this time period that we're talking about. And during that time period, if you think about it, 87% of the lifetime life just sat there kind of on summer. We made macromolecules. We first had the pre-cell or protocell, and then it led to the first group of cells, or prokaryotes. And then we had these lovely little guys called our stromatolites, and we have some of the oldest fossils that show that they've been around for 3.8 billion years. These are ancient cyanobacteria. Like I said, we can still see them off the coast in Australia. They photosynthesize and contribute a large amount of the atmospheric oxygen. Once we added oxygen, now we can get that molecule called ozone, and that is really what allowed for life to leave the water and go up on land. So that ozone helped to filter out that UV light, or else the DNA or RNA would not have been able to survive the ultraviolet rays from the sunlight. And here we just have a picture of the stromatolites. You can see the cyanobacteria here, and it actually has these calcium carbonate layers here, so we can see one layer at a time, kind of like counting rings of a tree, and how these have grown throughout the years. And this is what they look like today in the shallow water off the coast of Australia. So our first eukaryotic cells, we have hypothesized that they have showed up around 2.2 billion years ago. And of course, at that point in time, they're aerobic. We have oxygen in the atmosphere, we have a nucleus, and we have other membrane-bound organelles. We talked about the endosymbiotic theory, where we had smaller, free-living, aerobic, and photosynthetic prokaryotes that were engulfed or taken in by these larger nucleated cells. And so now we have what we call the mitochondria and chloroplast inside of plant and animal cells. So we look at multicellularity, so it only makes sense that we start off as a single cells, and then as time moves on, we end up getting multicellular organisms. The first fossil of a multicellular organism has been dated to be about 1.4 billion years old. We then see some sexual reproduction. We see colonial specialization cells from gametes. And then we get into what we call our Ediacaran invertebrates. And this is where we start to see imprint fossils. Remember, since we don't have hard tissue, we don't have bones yet, we have a hard time getting fossils from these time periods. So when we look at the Ediacaran, and I'm missing an eye here, invertebrates, we do not see a mouth, so no mouth. The nutrients are just kind of absorbed into the body. We think that they could be the ancestors of today's cnidarians, and we do just see them disappear from the fossil record around 545 million years ago. They are thought to have been eaten by predators, so they kind of went extinct. Then we have the Paleozoic era, which is between 542 million years ago and 299 million years ago. There are many events in this time period, so we have a lot of subdivisions. So there are 3 major mass extinctions during this time period. In the Cambrian period, the seas were full of these invertebrates, and we've kind of been looking at the invertebrates. All today's animals, we can look at their groups and trace them back to ancestors in this time period. We've talked about the molecular clock before. Again, that's that principle that DNA in certain parts of the genome mutate at a fixed rate. It's not tied to natural selection. So by looking at the number of base changes, it can tell us the amount of time that 2 species has diverged from a common ancestor. So we can look at this information when looking at phylogeny and what kind of order we should put our cladograms in. So we look at the Cambrian period, we start getting our protective outer skeletons. So we start seeing these exoskeletons, and they do form fossils. So we see the sea floor just dominated with these little organisms called trilobites. They are classified as an arthropod. They have segmented bodies. And this is a major animal phylum that we see today. So as we continue through our Making of a Planet video, we'll see these organisms, and we have seen those organisms in those computer animated models that they have shown us, and then we will start getting to some more of the higher order animal groups and hopefully eventually to the land plants.